Welcome to Lesson 7, the Canon Game app. Now in this app we're going to create a game that uses a special class called a surface view to enable us to draw on the screen from separate threads of execution. And this is typical of actual game development on Android, where you want to have logic processed outside of the graphical user interface thread of execution. Perhaps some of that logic is so complex that it would delay execution of the GUI thread. And in Android, if the GUI thread gets delayed for more than a couple of seconds, that can result in a so-called ANR dialog, an application not responding dialog, which would then give the user the opportunity to kill the application. So you don't want your applications to become non-responsive, therefore you will typically use a surface view when you're creating a game like this one. Now, we do have some new features that we'll be presenting in this app in addition to Surface View, one of which is the raw folder that you see here underneath the res folder. When you have things like sounds or videos that you want to play in your app or use in your app, you'll typically place those into the raw folder, and we'll talk about creating that folder and getting the media files into it in a subsequent video. The other thing that we're going to do in this app that's new is in the strings.xml file, we're going to use some formatted strings. Clearly you can see that we have some sound files here, so we'll be playing some sounds during the game, and that's going to require a couple of new techniques, including a sound pool and an audio manager. So we'll talk about those in subsequent videos in this lesson as well. And as part of this lesson, we'll also deal with some more of the activity lifecycle methods, in particular on pause and on destroy. And finally, we're going to deal with some touch processing in this app as well. Now, I've actually already gone ahead and run this app on my device, so now we're going to switch over to the video of the device itself, and you can see here that I've already played one game of the Canon game, and what I have here is the dialogue that appears if you win the game. Now, I mentioned the formatted strings concept. We'll be using formatted strings to format the message that you see in the dialogue at the end of the game. We're also using formatted strings at the top of the game here to show you how much time is remaining in the game. Now, initially, when you play the game, let me go ahead and hit reset here, you get 10 seconds to destroy this yellow and blue target on the right side, and the cannon has to fire without hitting the blocker in the middle. Now, the way that you actually aim the cannon, you can see as I touch the screen, the cannon follows my finger on the screen. But separately, you can also just double tap and the cannon will automatically aim at that direction and fire a cannonball. So for example, if I double tap here, you can see that it's firing the cannon, and sometimes I miss and sometimes I hit. Let's hit the blocker. So you see three different sounds here. You got the firing sound, the sound of hitting a blocker piece, and also, I'm sorry, a target piece rather, and also the blocker sound from bouncing off the blocker. Now, at the end of the game, in this case, I didn't destroy all 7 pieces of the target, so I can see that I lost the game. I see the total number of shots I fired and how long it took me to get to this point. The lower total time it takes and the fewer shots fired, the better you've actually done in this app, in this game. So once again, if I reset the game here, the double tap event is actually a gesture that we can test for in Android, and we'll be using a so-called gesture detector to help us with that, and whenever the user double taps, we'll fire a cannonball. Now, when a cannonball is on the screen, another cannonball cannot be fired, so we actually have logic in the game to prevent that. The other thing is we're using very simple collision detection in this app. So once in a while, it will actually look like the ball passes through the corner of a blocker or target piece, and that is just because we're using this primitive style of collision detection, but there's much more robust algorithms for collision detection and even libraries that you can use to help you do precise collision detection if you'd like. So in this app, we're going to be introducing many new techniques, and in particular, the most important of those techniques is this concept of the surface view that you would typically use if you're building more complex games, so that you can draw to the screen from separate threads of execution.